Just send it to Sandra and I'll put it right here. Hi. You going in first? Especially after coming off.
Oh good, Holly brought my
reading material.
Holly brought my 2 props. Because I forgot them. Thank God.
He's got a you see from the outside. Where you had all the smog and the smoke and the gutters and there's just she's all like, then if I wasn't the room was going on, that's fine. You only want to do
Every time joining this, I have not been able to read a novel, and it's all KW's fault.
Oh. Well, I suppose that means you're busy with other things then.
Well, yes. Not reading other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet you was. Cody. Thanks for coming.
Is it the roof?
It was in the mail area.
I'm not sure. Oh, it might have been.
This is her. One of her 6 o'clock. I think about 9:30.
Yeah, that would be good.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that. That's not better than for winter though, right?
I'll let you
I usually talk
every
Sunday.
take this weapon.
I'm so glad because I just looked in my bag and I was like, I didn't bring my books. Alright.
Good, how about you? I'm good. Good to see you. How are you? Good, that's good. It's just good. Yeah. Hi, Holly. Excellent. Hi, Andrea.
Awesome.
How are you?
Cool.
Good.
You're here at home?
Yes. And you?
Yeah, I'm
Just like an awesome wardrobe. I know, right? Yes. Yeah. Oh, cool.
Fits and fire.
Right?
Yes. So everybody, before we get started, there is Girl Scout cookies in the back. Thanks to Sandra Murray. She ordered them for my daughter and wanted to share them with all of us rather than consume them herself. Oh, you want to have this pen right here? So please help yourself, and if you have to have more to take home, I may have a few extra packages that I could potentially sell. So, yeah, thank you for coming. So I just passed out a handout, which if you've been to Holly and I's economic update before, you know that we blow really fast in an hour through a lot of stuff. And hi. Jeez. Yes. How are you? I think I gave you 2 right there.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, 2 sheets. A lot of stuff packed on here, and there's a lot of homework associated with these 2 sheets too. But it will get, I think it's kind of a good synopsis of some of the things that are going on. So hopefully you'll feel that way too. Because there's a lot going on right now. A lot going on in every realm of the world, it seems like. So, okay. So what I'm going to start with is what I've been talking about for every economic update so far that we had. And the first thing I'm going to do, and I'm probably not going to stop preaching the importance of this particular book until everyone has told me they've read it. So someday there'll be a quiz. This is a really great book. In fact, I read it, I don't know, maybe a year ago. It's a tough read. It's not an easy read. It's not a novel. It's not, daydreams. It's reality. It's a reality in terms of context of what we're doing right now, what's going on around us that we are having a hard time at times making sense of. And that makes it hard to do just a pure economic update. So these classes aren't just about the economy. It's about a lot of the variables that are affecting what shows up in terms of the economy for you. So hopefully you'll get that sense. But this book kind of helps get an understanding of where we're at and sort of the takeoff point. Gary Keller just had a mastermind at Family Reunion, and he had 2 books as his reading required for the mastermind, which I'm actually kind of disappointed about that it was only 2, because I went to one of his masterminds years ago, and there were 5. They gave us 2 weeks beforehand.
He gave us 1 week.
And it was, okay, 1 week for these 2 books. I had 2 weeks for 5 books that was like this thick. One of the books was the thickest book I've ever read in my life. It was insane. But anyway, it was good. These are tough books.
They were tough books to read.
So, thank you for being late. This is Thomas Friedman, New York Times bestseller. He wrote Freakonomics, The World is Flat. Did you write Freakonomics too? No, World is Flat, just The World is Flat.
I read World is Flat.
World is Flat. So this is the new, it's only like a year old, this book. Really good book. This book essentially talks about the fact that we're in the middle of 3 accelerations. Who wants to take a guess at what those accelerations are?
Climate change.
Oh, you got it! You're reading.
Yeah, I'm reading. Sorry. I'm cheating.
It's okay. Climate change, globalization, and technology. All at the same time, okay? And the thing that's cool about it is the first third of the book, he's sort of talking about what those are, which is actually sort of terrifying at times. And then he starts to peel it apart and talk about how we deal with it. That's the most helpful part. And being here today, you're taking a great step in dealing with the changes that are going on around us. So I really, really recommend this book. This is the next one he recommended, which I have yet to read. I just got it from the library, Platform Revolution. And this will help you understand what's so important about the changes that are happening in our industry, and also, I think, help you sift through the noise, maybe. I'm assuming that that's going to be the case.
Yeah, looks a lot of things like Airbnb and Uber and these businesses and Amazon businesses that don't have inventory, don't have cars, don't have things, and how they're building a platform for the exchange. So it is the threat to our industry, and it's also
the opportunity for our industry.
Yep.
So this is a good one. I'm going to start reading this soon too, so I'm sure we'll be talking more about that in the class ongoing. But this is another one, Platform Revolution. There's multiple authors. Parker, Ben Alstein, Shortaway. Is this a dense read too, Holly?
Oh
yeah. They're pretty dense reads. So, you know.
Well, I went to graduate school so I could read books for Gary Keller.
Who needs to go to the beach? Exactly. Holly can be our interpreter. So I highly, highly recommend those. Because what's really kind of neat too about the Friedman book is it then helps to bring you into the context of the conversation Gary's having with us. And by Gary, I mean Gary Keller. And that is, he's saying that we are in the midst, in terms of our industry, in the midst of 3 massive changes. Okay, 3 shifts, I guess, if you will. And it's out here outlined, technology and data, which is the whole platform discussion, which I posted on our KW intranet Facebook page yesterday, a 5-minute video that really does a great job explaining what he's talking about, and the importance of the platform and the data. An economic shift and a competition shift. And the competition shift is what you're going to hear in Inman News all the time, okay? And that's the noise with Zillow firing their CEO and bringing the founder back in, and all these various things going on, and you know, XYZ brand having a platform that rivals KW's platform, and blah, 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 blah. iBuyers. Has anyone heard about iBuyers? I have a lot to say about that. We'll talk about that. All of this stuff, so I highly recommend that you pay attention to what Gary's saying, because he really is figuring all this stuff out. And it's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. It's kind of exciting now. I can say that a year later after the panic blows up. You know? So it's kind of a fun time. And ultimately, you know, what everybody is saying who's having these conversations in terms of these books and Gary is, what do you do about it? Being here today, again, like I said, is the first step in moving in that direction, which is learning everything you can about it and participating. And God knows, 9/10 of life is showing up, right? Okay, so has anybody watched Gary's video from October 26th yet, in its entirety? Holly and me. Part of it. Homework assignment number 2. It is October 26th. It's on here. Everything that's a homework assignment is in bold, okay, on the handout to kind of make it simple. And you can keep this, you know, with you for a year, because these are the things that are going to be the most important things going forward in terms of what it's good to be familiar with. That is a really great, I've watched it several times now, and more pops out at me every single time I watch it. And it's just him describing how this platform change is directing the way commerce is done, okay? And it's really, really insightful and fascinating. So that's a really great video. It is almost 3.5 hours.
Whoa.
Yeah, yep. But I can think of a lot less useful things to blow 3.5 hours on, you know, so this is your life, your future, and this is a way to understand everything that's going on, because he doesn't just talk about real estate. He talks about the whole world in this microcosm that we're in, all the things that are changing. So it's a fabulous, fabulous thing. Next assignment is Gary Keller's vision speech for 2019. That's gonna give you the context. Every year, that should just be a must. If you're not gonna go to family reunion or can't go to family reunion, go in, and now it's so easy to go in, and this is the first year I think they went up as quickly as they did.
Yeah.
Not only were they live streamed for you while we were all in New Orleans, but they're on the KW Connect portal now. So you can go in there and watch all of the things that we experienced there with 17,000 other people. So you can do it in the privacy of your own space. But the vision speech is extraordinary. And that's the kind of thing that our spouses love to watch with us, our children, because it's unbelievable data. He's got some incredible economists that help him put all this together. So I highly, highly recommend that. So because I know it's available to you and I'm directing you to it, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time talking about it, okay? Because the other thing that also is in there you'll see is his slideshow. So all the slides, and those slides are phenomenal to pull out the ones that you wanna then use to be the economist of choice with your clients. And really, as a realtor, that's what you are, is you're trying to help people understand their house in the context of an economy, all right? It's national, it's big picture. I wouldn't say there were any huge surprises this year, would you, Holly?
No.
I think he basically was saying, you're in a good time right now. You're in a good time right now.
He wasn't cranky, Gary. He was pretty good.
Yeah.
Last year he was very agitated. Like last year, family reunion was sort of traumatic for everything, because he didn't know that he could do it. And this year he's gotten so far, like he's feeling the confidence he's going to deliver on this platform. So he was much more assured and not trying to terrorize us as much.
And what I find fascinating in terms of interpreting that even further is coming home from family reunion, and within 3 days there's major news from every other competitor.
Right.
Okay, so the war has been, the first shot has been fired, and that was by Gary Keller. So that's kind of a cool thing. You want everyone else reacting to what you're doing. That's a cool thing. So the vision speech is by far, has been for 17 years, my favorite thing to watch every year. This year it was pretty steady Eddie. The numbers are good, things are good. So that's all cool. But it's a really fun thing to watch. But it wasn't life altering in terms of any major expectations. The other thing, the next bolded item in our list is merida.org, and you get emails from me from time to time inviting you to belong to our KW joint membership for Merida, and you're welcome to do that. But at merida.org, all the videos from the forecasting event that happened in January are all there for you to go download, watch. Most of them for each sector are 20 minutes, and I highly recommend. They're really fascinating. I mean, it's just such an amazing way to get a good handle on the Maine economy holistically, if you're not reading Biz Magazine every week or month, whenever it comes out. So highly recommend. Any of those are fascinating to watch, and they're all available for free. So highly recommend merida.org, the 2019 annual forecasting event videos. They're really, really great. So those are some great resources just to kind of give you a good baseline for jumping into 2019 with a 2018 perspective. Now everything I've just gone over is 2018. It's not now. So it's all old stuff, so it's all good news, because 2018 was a great year, wasn't it? Okay, if you don't know that, it was a great year. It was a really, really great year. 2019, I think, has already gotten off to a really crazy start. And it's gonna be crazy. What was the craziest thing that's happened so far in 2019?
Shutdown.
In December.
Bingo.
Existing.
And my video isn't gonna play. So yes, the shutdown is the thing most people are pointing to right now that's creating the most sort of uncertainty in some of the numbers. Some of the numbers have been delayed as a result of that. So that is one of the things, and Lawrence Young is going to talk about that maybe at some point. So,
Are you hardwired in?
I don't know.
Okay, me either.
Just try starting it over again, it might,
Home sales decreased 6.4% to a seasonally adjusted annualized rate of 4.99 million unit pace. From 1 year ago, December to December, sales were down 10.3%. The national median existing home price in December was $253,600. Repeating, $253,600, which is a gain of 2.9% from 1 year ago. So a very modest gain, and I believe the wages are rising at 3.2%. So it's currently, at least in December, very rare situation where home prices are rising slower compared to the wage growth after multiple years of home prices outpacing wage growth. And it would be the softest price gain since February 2012. Supply, inventory, December is always the month where there is fewest inventory on a seasonal basis. There were 1.55 million homes available for sale at the end of December. But that is up 6.2% from 1 year ago. So compared to December of 2017, it is up 6.2%, and that would be largest percentage gain in quite some time, I think, during the taper tantrum. So inventory showing consistent gains, and the month supply based on the current sales rate and December inventory, which is always low, it is 3.7 months supply. 1 year ago, month supply was 3.2. Days on the market, typical home that was listed found a buyer in 46 days. 1 year ago, it was 40 days. So another indication that inventory situation is loosening. So let's go to now the annual figures. So the preliminary annual figure for the home sales for 2018 total, 5.34 million home sales, which is down 3.1% from 2017. And 2017 was the best home sales since the foreclosure crisis. It was the best in 10 years. Now we are coming down from that. So regarding prices, $259,100. So across all of 2018, the median annual home price, $259,100, which is a gain of 4.8%, and that is the slowest price appreciation since 2012. But the actual number, the median price, it is the highest home price ever. So prices are rising, but now at a slower pace than before. 2018 I would characterize as a year between a good economy, job creation versus affordability, and clearly it seems that affordability trumps job creation, given that sales actually declined while jobs were being created. So affordability is very important. If home prices outpace people's income growth consistently, it's going to hinder sales. We are seeing that in the West region. And also the housing sector is very sensitive to mortgage rate changes. So when the mortgage rates were rising throughout most of 2018, it was shaving off home sales. The other thing to note is that mortgage rates are lower now than, say, November time period, when today's number that I share with you would have to reflect that sort of buyer visiting open houses back in November or October. But the mortgage rates really came down notably in the second half of December, which means that any revival in home sales, which I do anticipate there will be some revival in home sales from lower rates, will not show up probably for another 30 to 45 days. I think we have to wait further because mortgage rate really was the second half of December when it was about half a percentage point lower. So I think we have to wait maybe another month or maybe even 2 months before we see some revival in home sales. And I do anticipate revival in home sales. The other point is government shutdown. 75% of our realtor members, so we just asked realtors, are you seeing any delays related to closing activity from government shutdown or people canceling out? And 75% of realtors are saying no impact whatsoever from government shutdown. But 11% are experiencing some delays, while another 11% are indicating their clients are hesitating. They just want to be more sure before committing to buy. So that's the survey that we are receiving from realtors, and that survey was about 10 days ago. We are still conducting a fresh survey. Once we get the fresh survey, we expect more realtors to express more disruption to sell, which is just natural. Along with the shutdown, there will be more people getting impacted from it. But all these are really delays, not actual cancellation. So in terms of actual cancellation, we did some analysis of the current furlough workers, 800,000 current furlough workers. It may impact home sales by 1%. So people who are just not in the market just because they are not getting the paycheck. So it's very minimal. One may even say negligible impact so far, but longer the shutdown. All this delay, will it show up eventually, or will some people actually drop out of the market? It remains to be seen. The other part is 2018, again, the annual figure I expressed to you, 5.34 million. That I would say is underperforming by historical standards. That 5.34 million home sales would be almost same as back in year 2000. The only difference between 2000 and today is we have many more jobs, almost 20 million more jobs. And believe it or not, the affordability, accounting for the mortgage rates and home prices, affordability is actually better in 2018 than in year 2000. Yet, home sales are roughly equivalent even with 20 million jobs. The other part is 2019 will be interesting because we know that tax reform has impacted some of the tax preference benefit for the real estate. I don't know whether people have fully digested this number in terms of making home buying decisions, or whether that comes into play for 2019 home sales. And the other one is just the fact the mortgage rate appears to be now lower, and it appears likely to be low throughout 2018, whether the second chance opportunity for the buyers really brings back the buyers. But otherwise, 2018, because of the affordability challenges, we have seen a sales decline.
So does everybody know who Lawrence Young is?
Mm-hmm.
He's the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. On your sheet, you can see Lawrence Young, NAR.realtor. You all have access to everything that's on that website, and I highly recommend.
My name is Evan Whittier of the National Association.
I'm a really good dancer. Yeah, my mother's so glad she gave me all those dance lessons. That's where you can find that, and that's another great place to just consistently look at what's going on. And I think, when you're dropping in on this class for the first time, sometimes it's hard to know all that context that's behind you. But all of the stuff I'm giving you kind of gives you some of that context. He was a little more discombobulated today than he's an interesting character as a person. We all have our quirks to our personality. And he lately, he has good days and bad days, but lately he's been, would you say, a little bit less optimistic?
Yeah. He seemed more unbalanced this time, but the last time he was a little more skeptical of what was coming, so there's a little more...
He's been talking a lot about trade war, affordability, and other variables starting to undermine the overall health of the housing market, okay? Right now, he's sort of hanging his hat on the government shutdown being a challenge for some delays, not major upsets or upheavals in the market, but some delays. And before that, he was talking about the fact that the housing sales are down as a result of lower inventory So one of the things I thought was fun is I pulled a couple of other reports, you can each take one. On the back of this is existing single-family homes, and you can see, because what we try to do is tease out what's really going on, and you can start to see that the average month supply is starting to go up. Okay, so that means we're starting to move more towards a buyer's market. Okay, so you can see this, and that's what you always want to be looking at, because that helps you, boots on the ground, interpret all this stuff that's coming at us and bring it to your clients. And it also helps you to figure out how to get the information you need, because we have macro market, which is our national, and then we have our little micro markets, which might be downtown Freeport, or the peninsula, or the east end of Portland, right? And so what we hope to do in this class is kind of take some macro stuff and then just give you those skills for where you can then go to drill that down for your clients. But this is a really cool indicator. And the thing that I love about numbers is they don't lie. They tell a story. And most consumers, because right now, we know from the last economic update, most sellers think it's a really good time to buy, or sell, sorry. And most buyers are starting to feel like it's not so good of a time to buy. Okay, so we're starting to see that imbalance again, all right? And then this is where I start to look for real data on what's behind that and what I can use to talk to my clients about what's going on, okay? And so when you start to see easing of the inventory and you start to see more inventory, what's that gonna do to pricing? Yeah. So we've had a trending up because we haven't had as much inventory, and then you're gonna start to see. And there's some, on your sheet, there's also, further down, there's some information from the National Home Builders Association, which is always good to see, because they always seem to be a trailing indicator. The home sales, or new construction, always seems to be a trailing indicator. They never quite time it right, so that, you know what I mean? So then we end up having all this new construction inventory after we've had a great market. So it's coming again, okay? It's coming again. There's a lot of stuff that I'm seeing that is coming again at us, okay? So there's a lot you can tease out of that video. On here is where you can find it and listen to it again, because it may be one of those things you want to listen to 2 or 3 times. I don't digest everything I hear the first time I hear it. One of the things I thought was really interesting was that we have almost 20 million more jobs now than we did in 2000. But interest rates are better, even though prices are up, okay?
That was interesting. The affordability.
So the affordability. Yeah, so that's really, really interesting. And he's absolutely right that interest rates went up quite a bit over 2018, and now they're coming down. And the last I heard, which was a week ago, a little whisper from the Fed is they're not going to touch rates.
They're not going to mess with that.
They are not going to touch rates. So that tells you they're looking at some of this stuff that we're looking at in here, and they're getting a little concerned, is my interpretation of that. Okay, so the slowdown due to the government shutdown. Okay, we talked about that. A second chance for buyers to get back in. That might be a good script. This is a second chance for you, you know? If we know that we're not going to have any difficulty telling the sellers that this is a good time to sell, but it might be a difficult time for buyers in terms of convincing them it's a good time to buy, that might be a space where we want to really think about what we're going to be saying to people, because that's the activity we're going to want to encourage, okay? Another thing that was cool on this website is the breakdown of the demographics for what's in the market. That's cool. So the NAR website has a lot of really great breakdowns of data. So I highly recommend you spend some time there. So one of the other statistics I came across I thought was interesting. All cash sales in January 2019 were up by a whole percentage point. So 23% of the sales were all cash versus 22%, which has been the average for about a year now. So that's interesting, really interesting. I thought it was really interesting also what he said about tax reform. People haven't digested in terms of their home buying decision the effects of the new tax law. What do you think that means?
You can't write off the mortgage interest anymore, correct?
There's caps on it now. And the standard deduction is competing with it now, essentially. So, yeah, that is going to be a really interesting thing. And throughout the course of 2019, we're going to start seeing the impact of that as people become aware of what that means in terms of their life. Because that's another variable that affects affordability, right? So, that's another thing to watch for. So the quarterly reports, NAR, please, like I said, spend some time there. Then I go down here and give you some other additional information about the National Home Builders Association. Again, I believe that's a lagging indicator, but they're feeling really bullish and really excited. right?
Still going.
They've had lots of years of good numbers, and it's almost like they need that in order to really start feeling comfortable leveraging. And I just wonder if they're gonna miss the boat. It's kinda interesting. Purchase applications, this is interesting, this next bullet point. For the week ending February 15th, new purchase applications are up 1.7%, and refinance applications are up 6.4%. It's another indication that rates have come down. Okay, so that's just, if you take nothing else away from this class, the fact that rates are down is a really huge thing to take away from it, with a composite increase of 3.6%. Federal Open Market Committee released the minutes from its meeting of 2019, and they're divided. What I'm hearing, though, is that they aren't going to be making any major decisions about monetary policy for 2019. Existing home sales or resales declined, and most people are saying that that is, so when you hear the 5.34 million home sales versus the 4.99 is what he was talking about, so that's the decline. And when you're dealing in shorter increments of time, it's not necessarily a hard and fast, it's just a trend line, okay? And that will change as we go through the year. For the week ending 2/16, jobless claims, so there's some additional information. Time Magazine, these Manhattan condos, we've talked a lot about those in this class. And that's just a fun little thing to watch. For the 4 of the last 5 years, condo sales in Manhattan are down.
And they're still building. That lagging is gonna hit them hard. There's some big projects going up that they are having a lot of trouble selling right now.
Yep.
He's up.
Miami's up. So it's interesting to watch these little pockets. You can learn lessons about what that means for here. But again, macro to micro. What's your micro? Okay? But it's just interesting to sort of watch some of this. It's not all puppies and unicorns. Is that your favorite saying, Holly? Puppies
Rainbows and unicorns.
Rainbows and unicorns. Gotta get that right. Okay. So, oh, this is kind of fun. This next little blurb I did here, predicting the year 2030, the fourth industrial revolution. Because again, remember, we're not just talking about the economy. We're talking about all the other things that are going to factor into it. And when you read that book, thank you for being late, it will make you nauseous with the types of changes that we're experiencing. It will, but you know, we're alive. We're going to go through it. And it's important. But this I thought was really fun. I love how Time does this. They kind of take us into the future. So the global population, does anybody know what it is right now? 7.6 billion. So it's going to increase by another billion by 2030, is what they're predicting. Okay? At the current trend lines. 1 in 4 miles will be traveled in shared self-driving vehicles. The richest 1% currently own 47% of global wealth, and they could own 64% by 2030. Global economic gains due to artificial intelligence should go from 2 trillion in 2018 to 16 trillion in 2030. Okay? So when people say data is going to, you know, everything's going to be Uberized or Amazonized or Netflixized, whatever you want to call it, this is the opportunity side. That's the point I wanted to present to you on that, is it's going to go from 2 trillion to 16 trillion. So it is going to increase the economic opportunity significantly. The adult obesity rate from 40% in 2016 to 50% in 2030. So we may want to have a fitness plan for ourselves, right? And all those that we love. Global annual defense spending could jump more than 50% if the current trend continues from 1.7 trillion in 2017 to 2.75 trillion in 2030. So just some interesting things to think about as you project out into the future. So a lot will accelerate and change, and it's time to reimagine and participate. The Optimist Playbook, this is a really cool article that I did not make copies of, but if anybody's interested in it, this guy, Klaus Schwab, is the founder of the World Economic Forum. And they just had their meeting in Davos, and they all flew in on their private jets. Anybody follow this stuff, or am I the only crazy one? Okay.
Bloomberg, every morning, it's there.
It's entirely fascinating to me.
Trump didn't go this year, though, right?
I don't think he's ever gone in the last
No,
few years.
I thought he did 2 years ago.
Yeah, 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years ago? Okay.
Not this year.
This year there were some real interesting things that happened there. I encourage you to check out what happened there. This is fascinating. So this guy has some really interesting takes on all these topics. On the economy, it's a really interesting read if anyone wants to blow through that really quickly. So I recommend that. It's kind of interesting because I think it's important in times of tremendous change to be optimistic, because then you'll see the opportunity side of it, right? And there's a lot of opportunity. Oh, this one kind of freaks me out a little bit. because this should be an indicator to all you. The article I did attach for you. As U.S. debt rate rises, auto loan delinquencies hit record high. All right, that's an article that's included with your handout for the class today. So I encourage you to read that. Just half of this information that we're sharing with you today is going to make you an expert and really help your clients. Suzanne?
I was just curious on the global on this statistics, what they use 2030 as
the projection year based on trend lines, current trend lines. Yep. So they're projecting out to 2030.
So it's out to 2030 and
yeah, so that's just them having fun with messing with things, you know. It's kind of like all the other different modelings that people do. So that's a really good article just to kind of keep you up to speed on what's really happening in the economy, because you hear a lot about student loan debt, but car loan debt? That's kind of scary when you start to see those types of delinquencies showing up. And the other thing I got while we were at family reunion is I got an email from a local lender. Stated income mortgages are back.
Yeah.
Is that right, Bart? Did I hear that right?
I mean, I didn't email you that.
No, you didn't. And I'm so glad because I was horrified.
Yeah, they call it non-prime now. That's not subprime. They're just trying to change it.
Non-prime.
So I mean, yeah, we can do them if you want them.
So does everybody know what stated income, non-prime, or subprime is?
Loans,
Oh, yeah.
So people with no tax returns.
No tax returns, no income. You can state your income and you can get a mortgage. So this,
We've been there before.
have we been there before?
Yeah.
My understanding of the difference between
Deb,
last time
please,
and this time,
tell me.
and Bart, you can back it up or not, is the credit score is always
The average
like,
credit score, like we were listening to some statistics a couple weeks ago, and the return on the portfolios is great. I mean, so it's not necessarily poor credit, right? It's been people with, I think the average credit score from the person we talked to was 701 and above on these types of loans, and very low delinquency, but it's just the beginning. So I mean, it's just scary.
I mean, you think it's going to start getting looser?
Yeah, it already
That
is.
that is the discussion that I'm hearing at the federal level is to loosen regulation.
It wasn't here a few years ago, and it's coming back.
Yeah, I'm shocked, frankly, after what we went through in the.
It's private though. It's not in the.
It's not secondary market.
Yeah, it's not yet.
Not yet.
Hopefully it doesn't come.
So these are things to watch for and to bring to the awareness of your clients. These are all things that can create sense of urgency, depending on what your clients' needs are. Because understanding some of these perspectives are just good things to know. I'll leave that there. So, okay, this is fun. Zillow flipping homes. Does everybody see that news? Zillow offers. Has anyone tried to get a Zillow offer on their home?
Did you?
As soon as I got home from family reunion. So I went to the Marina conference in January, and one of the gals that got up and spoke about iBuyers and how it was just going to like take over and transform everything. And I was like, huh. I had just read an article in NAR, Realtor magazine, that was like, it's just, no worries, poo-poo, it's nothing. So I was like, okay, I gotta find out what's really going on here. So family reunion, they had this panel on iBuyer. I was like, I'm going, 7:30 in the morning. I have no idea what I'm gonna see. So I get there, and there's this woman who was like the #1 broker for, what was it called? Open Door in Austin, Texas. Gary Keller hired her. I'm like, okay, this woman's impressive. Then there's this guy who handles all of Gary's personal financial assets. It's his own personal financial investment guy, who was like so smart. Just being in the room made me smarter. It was unbelievable. I was like, okay, I'm glad I got up early for this one. And then they had 4 or 5 top agents from other parts of the country. Mesa, Arizona, Dallas, Texas, where Open Door and the iBuyer platforms are starting to get some traction. Okay?
They're disrupting there.
It was a massive conversation. It was unbelievable. It was really fascinating, really, really fascinating. Now, it's gonna be harder in Maine, because as soon as I got home, that's what I did, is I went right onto Zillow, and I was prepared to put one of my own properties in there to get an offer and tell my husband we're selling one of our properties. But it's not here yet, okay? And that's one of the benefits that we have. Our market is not You don't have thousands and thousands of tract homes like Mesa, Arizona, where you can say, am I the A, B, or C, or D home between 250 and 375. Okay, that's their sweet spot right now. That's where they're testing it all out, okay, to see if it works. So how an iBuyer program works is I can go online, I can put all the information about my house in there, just like you can take pictures of your car, and you can upload the VIN number, and you can get an offer to sell your car. You can do that now online, okay? So iBuyer for your home is the same way. Put all the information about your home, and then you can put it out there, and you can actually, theoretically, get an offer on your home. And this entity, which is an online entity, will put you through a series of contract steps. There's no fiduciary involved. It's purely a functionary experience, which is what Amazon is, right? Okay, it's a functionary experience. It's here's my information. Okay, my understanding is you will get less than market value on the property, okay? And they hire their own inspectors, they hire their own engineers, they come in, they renegotiate all this stuff with you, and then they potentially close on your property. But then what they do is they take it, they fix it up, and then they list it. Okay, so when you heard that news blip about Zillow prioritizing their own properties over other realtor listings, that's what those are, is their iBuyer properties. So they've gone into a marketplace and they've bought properties, and then they turn around and sell them the way they want to, any way they want to, with a realtor.
And it depends on a rising market though.
Yeah. It's gonna be fun to watch this. It's gonna be really fun to watch this. There's been some really interesting articles lately too about how all this sort of stuff that's being thrown against the wall, all this venture capital money that's coming into our industry, how so much of it just isn't sticking. So much of it. There was an article about Purple Bricks yesterday. Their Open Doors having challenges. Zillow firing their CEO and bringing in the founders of the company. There's problems, and that's one of the challenges of being stock market publicly traded company, is you have to answer to your stockholders. So you don't have the ability to pivot as quickly as maybe other organizations do. So the long and the short of the iBuyer discussion is we don't have it here yet. That makes it really fun for us because we're gonna let it kind of get figured out elsewhere, and then we're gonna have the wisdom that's bestowed upon us from that. And Gary's amazing financial guy has built out with this other group of people that were in that room, they've been labbing an iBuyer program. So we're actually gonna have our own iBuyer program at Keller Williams. So for those clients of ours that have to sell their house in 2 weeks because they can't buy the other house or whatever it might be, in the event that that is a really strong benefit in the market, we're gonna have our own. So that's a really cool thing. Tomorrow morning, I think I put in here, our good friends at the Portland Press Herald are having a seminar at the Portland Public Library at 7:30 on iBuying. So I'm gonna go to that right here in Portland. They also had an article in the Portland Press Herald yesterday talking about iBuyer. So I would say we will be talking about it more here in this class as it evolves. Our KW iBuyer program is gonna roll out Q2. So I would expect that sometime in late summer. So that's gonna be fun. I'm gonna be really up to speed on that. So I think that's gonna be fascinating to just sort of watch how that goes. The one other additional quote I would add to that is Open Door, which is a known large national iBuyer platform, quoted in the news before we went to family reunion. The last thing we ever want to see is 170,000 Keller Williams agents armed with their own iBuyer program.
I saw that.
So
yeah.
Bring it on. Bring it on. So that's going to be fun. You know, and I think one of the other things that I just sort of wrote this really quickly in here, sharing economy. You know, when you think about the amount of miles that are going to be driven by automated cars or cars that are shared, and when you couple that with student loan debt, car debt delinquencies, you know, housing affordability, all these challenges we have to meet, and the increase in population, you know, it kind of funnels down into one space, in my opinion. And more of the sharing economy, more and more of this density. We talked last time, and I left some of these quotes, statistics in here that I just thought were so fascinating about Maine last year. And my favorite one, I think, in terms of what I learned from all these little blurbs here under the Maine heading, is the Lynn Haven Mobile Home Center in Brunswick allowing 40 tiny homes to rent space on their property. And the fact that mobile home sales were up 20%. there's a message there, and I think that's really the opportunity. Is I think there's going to be massive transformations in terms of how we live and how we consume.
Well, that's what they said at Marita too.
Yep, I think
Micro living spaces.
that's what we're going to start to see, and people want to. We're not going to be working as much potentially. AI. You know, what is my favorite quote from the World Economic Forum? By the year 2025, 85% of what we do is going to be replaced by artificial intelligence. You can't start to make some of these connections unless you take all this stuff that Holly and I are feeding to you in and think about it through that lens. That's what we're going through. That's the fourth industrial revolution that we are in the middle of right now, is massive changes to everything that we're doing. So, on that note, Main Biz, KeyBank has closed 4 branches due to digital online banking. I'm almost shocked that they actually said that was the reason. I'm almost shocked, but I'm pleased at the transparency. But that's huge. I will tell you that for the very first time in 30 years, I may have just shifted some of my money somewhere. So,
offshore?
No, but I wish I knew how that worked. I hear that's a thing. All of my money was gained legally, so, you know. But
You
this
get a
is,
small loan of $1 million?
these things are changing, is the point. It kind of scares me a little bit because I think there's a lot of problems with that. The largest residential mortgage lenders in Maine, this is just the list right from the back of Biz Magazine. RMS is number 1, Camden's number 4, Banger's number 3, Quicken, number 4.
Wow.
That shocked me. Yeah.
That's scary.
Merrimack, Saco Biddeford, Lendus LLC, which is a California company, Mortgage Network, First National, United Shore, and you. Keller Mortgage is coming, guys. And that's another thing to keep aware of. We're going to have the iBuyer program and Keller Mortgage. And so things are changing, and I think there's so much to stay up to speed on. Plug in and try to do that. Another thing I think is really interesting is Portland just hired Tyler Technologies and is going to be reassessing for the first time since 2006.
Ooh.
That could have a big impact on affordability. Yeah. So the city of Portland is going to go through a massive reassessment right now.
Oh.
So, yeah.
They started it, right?
Yeah, they've started it.
So if they went up last year, was that just tied to the increase in
Typically.
consumer index? Or?
Typically, I'm not sure how the towns calculate it, and I should find this out because I think this is interesting. But most towns will just increase the tax base. That's sort of their solution to their budget problems.
Right.
And that typically comes from the schools more often than not is what I'm finding. And so, but this is actually a reassessment. So properties are actually going to be evaluated, and it's town-wide, it's uniform. So what do we think is going to happen there? Taxes are going to go up.
When are they going to roll out the
I don't know. I don't know. But that's happening.
Last time they did it, they raised it incrementally because they were so far behind.
And that might be
it was a bump up over a couple of years.
And that might be what has to happen. I don't know, but it's kind of like
Portland was way out of whack before.
It's kind of a big deal. It's still one of the top 10 places to live. We all know that, right? Right? And a crash course in statistics. This has been driving me nuts since we got the new Flex MLS. So on the 19th of February at 10 o'clock, I tuned in on a live webinar, and here's the link for you. Okay, this is the video of the webinar of the link that I took. Whatever it was I said. But it's different ways that you can pull out these statistics and take our macro sort of direction and go more micro into your markets. So, because I couldn't figure out how you could just search condos in a certain neighborhood. So it shows you how you can isolate the mapping and the pricing and all of that. So I'm gonna have to go back and watch this video probably 4 or 5 times before I figure it out. But I wanted you to have that so that you
where is it?
Can be helpful. It's underlined in blue.
Oh, okay.
And another thing I'll just pass out is a U.S. Economic Outlook, if anybody wants it. I have these too, which is great, right from the NAR website. And I have a couple of other cool things. Right now, I always talk about what my favorite reading material is. This is my favorite right now. Okay? We have a transition in leadership at the National Association of Realtors level. I'm not sure that it's the same as Elizabeth Mendenhall. She was excellent. She was a really visionary type leader. So I'm not sure how I'm feeling about that source, but this is really great for keeping up on what's happening here in Maine. And the Maine Realtor magazine is excellent. So if you want to really keep up to speed, and I'll tell you, If you just read this, when you're talking to your clients, had a client the other day that works at WEX, and I was like, oh, you're moving into the building down in the city? And she's like, wow, aren't you up on the news? I was like, what? These things matter, okay? They matter. So these are really, really excellent. A couple things I did pull out of them is, I mean, there's just really great statistics and information about how our state splits apart. If you ever spend any time in Augusta working with any of the policymakers up there, you know, you will soon realize that there are multiple parts of Maine. You know, we are the driving economic engine of Maine here. And then there's some serious challenges in other parts of Maine. And so understanding some of those things are really important, and understanding where that growth is going and where we grow from Portland. So there's some really great stuff. So Holly, you're next.
Leanne, where do you get that on the parts of Maine?
This was all right from Biz.
Oh.
And then that list of all the top lenders was actually right. This is like one of my favorite things to read. Is at the back of Biz every month they do a list of, like, sometimes it's top paid lobbyists in the state. Sometimes it's, you know, right now it's the lenders. And so there's just really Maine's largest private employers. Isn't that cool to know? Like, if you were going to do lead generation in an HR department, you know, so there's just amazing information for what you get in
Can you
those.
find those by where you find like the forecast?
It's a subscription.
Oh, it is.
So I actually have a subscription.
Okay.
And then I get their emails weekly also, which are really incredible.
What month is that?
This is February 4th.
Okay.
And this was a great
It's on
one.
the stands now.
Homing in on affordable housing. This was awesome. I mean, it really, there's so much noise about rent control and affordable housing in Maine and da-da-da-da. It was incredibly insightful. And then this one, the one that just came out, it's a 2-week issue, and it's Reality Bites. So there was a lot of stuff in there about virtual reality. And just, again, if we're really taking what Thomas Friedman is saying seriously, and we're clear about those 3 accelerations, how are we leaning into it? How are we learning about it? And I'm finding Biz is actually a very good resource, especially for us at the local perspective. Thank you.
Leanne, do you have any more of those, the sheets, the first sheets that you have? That's good.
Alright, awesome. So, Leanne and I do this because we share a sort of demented perspective on the universe. We both have this thing for Robert Shiller. So what I'm getting out is an article. Robert Shiller does the Shiller Index, which is that when you're taking a long view of real estate and home prices. And I found this article really fascinating. The housing boom is already gigantic. How long can it last? And what I thought was so amazing that what he says is, my data shows that this is the United States' third biggest housing boom in the modern era. Right now, we're in the third. And the statistic that was unbelievable to me was in, on average, a house that sold for $200,000 in 2012 would sell for $300,000 in September of last year.
Whoa.
Right? Pretty unreal. The one that was even more, when we talk about people who've been in real estate for a long time, was the number one boom was from February '97 to October of '06, when real prices of existing United States homes rose 74%. I remember thinking at that time, I used to be a real estate appraiser, I was like, we can't afford to buy back our own house. Like, if we had to sell it right now, we would not qualify to rebuy it. But then, you know, things that were going up were coming down. So there was, between 2008 and 9, there was a 35% drop in sale prices. And then the second biggest boom was a 60% biggest boom. So I'm a skeptic. It's funny that you're the optimist, but
I'm highly critical.
You're highly critical.
I have to work at being optimistic.
Neither one of us is rainbows and unicorns, but I think it's the kind of thing you want to keep in mind. Like, what's going up is, we're going to slow down. We're leveling off. I think that's what Leanne was showing. That the prices, the things we're coming here. You never know when you've gone over till you've gone over it. Just like you never know. You don't know how you get to rock bottom till you're coming back up from it. So, so I'm going to go through some of the slides. Pretty quickly here, these are updates. These are going to be, honestly, I don't know where online. Maybe, I don't know. Can we still find the intranet? Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Governance and under economic update.
Okay.
We have our own space.
Okay, so you can still find these. So I will send these, or actually Chelsea will send these later on. So this is looking at January. It's always interesting when you look at the two numbers, right? Because it's like, well, the median sales price is higher here, but look, we only have 700,000 sales. The South, 2.08 million sales of. We are a little isolation, like Leanne says, and that's why we don't get the focus. We don't, you know, even in Maine, we don't get the focus of these tech companies. They don't want to come here. You know, my husband still is an appraiser, and underwriters can't understand like why you don't have comps within a half mile that sold in 6 months. It's like, because within a half mile we might have a mobile home and a colonial and then a farm. You know, we're not going to have 3 ranches that are just alike there.
I could walk the comps in Florida.
You can walk the comps in Florida, right? January housing snapshot. You're welcome to use these in your listing presentations. These are taken right from the National Association of Realtors. You could even access it yourself online, but they have things that are downloadable in PDFs. So what I look at here is inventory down here, up to 3.9 months absorption rate from 3.4 in 2018. That's a good jump, right? A balanced market is ideal is 6 months. But we're moving towards that. So it's the good news and the bad news, like Leanne is saying. You know, it's like these are the times to have conversations with buyers and sellers. But buyers saying, hey, like things are moving in your favor. There's more inventory. You're going to have more negotiating power. It's not going to be so many multiple offer insanity events. Again, another slide that you can use. Sales decreased. I think it was the 3rd month where things are just leveling off. We're just doing this. And someone asked a question earlier about, I think you're asking about the trend lines. Gary Keller had this during the vision speech. He was talking about a hockey puck. And he says, like, if there's a hockey puck here, you don't know where things are going unless you know the direction they came from. And I was reading an article, and it was showing the difference in the top 0.1% of households, and it was something about the middle class. And so I think that the article Leanne's referencing is they're just these trend lines are outrageous for what the top owners of wealth, how much of the wealth of the entire world that they own. And they're accelerating at this rate, whereas like the middle class is doing this. And I think that the middle class is doing this, and then it was fascinating, the upper middle class was following right along the GDP line, like right there. And it was a case about who needs tax reform. And they're saying, well, they have a lot of extra money. Everything needs some big taxes. These people need some help, and this upper middle class, you don't get anything. You're right on the GDP.
Well, that's how we funded the New Deal, with 90% upper capita tax rate.
Mm-hmm.
There's already proposals for that, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
And people are starting to listen.
Yeah. Because when you see it, when you sort of look at a trend line like that, like, okay, now it makes more sense.
Yeah, did you see that historian record?
I'm not sure.
I actually almost put that book on my
Which one?
recommended, but I haven't read it yet.
So we're seeing our median sales prices, the change rate. Cumberland, 3.48%. York, 9.5%. Our crazy cousins up in the mid-coast, Saginaw, 15.36%. And Lincoln, we're 120,
It's a story.
Just gotta look. You gotta look at the numbers. You gotta look at the numbers and the percentages. And the stories of 2 Maines. Exactly. January, Maine, the single-family home sales eased. That was an interesting word. Median sales price remained the same. We're just in this, we're in this kind of leveling off time. But what sellers are hearing, right? Sellers hear the national news. Somebody's talking about this. So sellers hear, my house is going up 5% every year. So if I was going to sell it for, 200 last year, well, I'd just add tack on 5%. And they're in that kind of mindset of where they think they are, and they may be in a place that's just actually really quite flat. So this I brought in. This is a mailing I sent out for prepare for my team. We sent out for Valentine's Day, called "How Much Does Your House Love You?" And what I wanted to show is an example of how you can use statistics to tell some kind of story that might be engaging. There was a article when I was doing research for Economic Update, and it was talking about the average homeowner who sold in December. Their average amount of money they made was $52,000 from when they bought their house. That was just like everybody. So people could have bought their house a year ago. People could have bought their house like $52,000. And I found this other study out of some crazy company, Axum, we referenced it, in California, and then I looked at statistics. I'm not going to show you how I did it in case I did it wrong based on what Leanne just told me. But I went back to towns here and I said, what was the median home price? Because I could find that by town. In 2010, Portland, it was $210,000. In 2018, it went to 320. So I was trying to provoke people to think about, like, how much does your house love you? Like, let me update you. Maybe you bought your house at the bottom of the market, but we can take statistics out of this format and we say, and we take something real, and we have an amazing assistant who can make a house out of hearts. But I got a lot of engagement. I got people responded to this. Well, I have been thinking of selling. And it just went out like as a MailChimp email. So I'm just encouraging you is to think, look at some statistic that people can be hyper-local and engage on. And that is a lot of what Gary Keller is designing with Command. It's all going to be neighborhood-based. We didn't touch as much on the technology, but you'll hear that in the vision speech. It's really, they're going to have, consumers are going to have, and maybe I'm sure Shannon will touch on this at 2 o'clock, an interactive experience that's particular to them. So, so if Maria, if you were a consumer, your consumer app would be telling you what's going on in Dunegrass. Like, you'd go on and it would show you beautiful houses with lovely kitchens, and Leanne might be having a consumer app that's showing her incredible investment weirdo junky properties that look like murder scenes, right?
Yeah.
She'd be all
traumatized every time. Super excited for the opportunity.
super excited about that. So I let Leanne have the bulk of the time because I knew she had so many amazing things to say, but I did want to share with you, I had family reunion is an incredible experience. I went to all kinds of things. It's always shifting perspectives. I saw Gary Keller in a couple different settings. I went to one where he was just talking to leadership about the technology, and being a little real, like when it's going to roll out, it's going to be rolling out in stages. And then I had the opportunity, and I'm still wearing this bracelet to remind me of it, that I got into, for the first time in 9 years of real estate, Gary Keller's mastermind for the top less than 1%. So if you think about it, there's 180,000, yeah, it was amazing. I was like, oh, told my husband, never taken it off. 180,000 agents, and he's just increased this group from about 150 to 300 people. But that's a really different Gary Keller. And he was more of an agitated Gary Keller. He was like, change is coming. Because he's talking to people who have big teams or have a lot going on. The ones he wants to be the millionaire real estate agents. And he's like, get real now with the shift coming. Get your money under control. Get focused on your profit. Get rid of your expenses. Get rid of people who are not performing. And then he would stop. And he would say, and he'd go, breathe, and you could actually hear the room going, because he just kept sort of layering on these things. It was tough love, but that is why I really respect him as a leader, because he does not sugarcoat. He is, some people say he's this eccentric billionaire. Well, it's awesome to have an eccentric billionaire because we are privately held, so he can do what he wants. He can hire all these incredible tech people and drive this technology. And he really thinks about the agents, and so he's thinking very intentionally with Command about how we're going to create a moat and keep delivering value to people. But a lot of it is going to be this neighborhood basis. So there are some Facebook groups about Command. I personally am having Sandra Tassinari figure it out for me for 2 weeks before I even try to look at it, but other people are in there. I'm not even making Chelsea do it. Like, Sandra can figure this out. Get on there and start messing around with it, but just start getting into a focus point of being just being really hyper local in what you're doing and how you're communicating. Reading this stuff, coming down from the macro to the micro to where WEX is going will only help you to have the conversations that are going to matter, because people don't want fluff anymore, right? People don't want the emails that are just like global and what's happening across the country, because that's not what's happening here in Maine. So I will end on and I even, like, this is how crazy I was. There's a big expansion team that's trying to recruit me. So they invited me to their systems orientation class. I'm like, sure, I'll go. And then they gave me their whole playbook. I was like, awesome! So, I can't tell you how much. Family reunion is just an incredible time. There's these 7:30 crazy classes about iBuyers. There's classes, just about for sellers, for working with buyers, for every kind of aspect of stuff. There's breakout classes, and then you also have this opportunity to be in a room with 17,000 other people. If you haven't drank the Kool-Aid, you will after.
This Kool-Aid won't kill you though.
This Kool-Aid won't kill you.
Just a little nuance.
It'll make you stronger.
Yeah. Exactly.
She's absolutely right with the K to B command. I'm blocking off an hour a week to get my own personal command going. So I've been playing around in it, messing around with it.
Yeah.
And, don't ignore it.
No, don't ignore it. It's going to integrate with other things. If you're already using something, like my teams were using Follow-Up Boss, it's going to integrate with it. There's going to have things that are crossover. There's something called HighSync that I don't exactly know what it is. But it's coming. And to Leanne's point, just even put a few people in and start playing with it.
Put yourself in.
Put yourself in.
Yeah, even so that you can get yourself an iBuyer. Also. Something else if you're a killer.
Exactly. So thank you all. Thanks for coming. And if any of you missed a handout, just let us know if you wanted that article. I think that Robert Schiller article is really fascinating because this is the kind of stuff people want to have. This is your elevator speech or your cocktail party conversation or something that engages people, right? It's the hook. They want to have a talk with you, and then you want to be ready with the follow-up conversation.
It shows you have the intensity, and this is a battle between the fiduciary and the functionary. The technology is functionary. We're a fiduciary.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah, and I think that's what, to your point, Leanne, you would have loved because he was talking about your favorite book. When I saw that book assignment, I was like, Leanne, Gary Keller thinks just like you. That everything, the functionary role keeps getting compressed by all these different accelerations. But you, us, the agents, we layer on the humanity. And that will be the moat that will protect this business, is getting real, getting intentional with your people, being that human, being that fiduciary. And that fiduciary means you're always putting your client's interests above your own. You're not just going for that sale, you are looking at what is best for them, what is financially the best decision for them. So, thank you all.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. Thank you very much. You want a copy of this?
Yeah, just gonna send it Of course I do. Yeah. If they want it, I can read it. Yes. Just send her. I guess you can send her all. We don't have the name. It still says I think the end. Or one that's the.
What time is it? Okay.
I can take a look at it.
Just give you an Okay, so maybe like another skim tone.
No, I think just
Which is fine.
the old point of the same.
There's a lot of times when you do that before, you just want to put like one fire code
And that's over 2 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't hear.
No primary. So primary, not, yeah, so.
I'm with you.
I don't
Well, but I have all beyond you. I'm into the stress. You're touching Mars.
What we could do is,
I can go look in the office.
so you do.
I remember things at 4 a.m.
did you want to Yeah, I mean, you don't have to read the whole thing, it's sort of.
Yeah. All right.
Back into
Well, I think it's what.
Shoot me an email and we'll
Okay.
we'll connect.
I mean, he is, but he's starting, you know, he's really, he's really gearing the teams out. Yeah. Yeah.